let me start by introducing you to our first keynote speaker, Dado van Peteghem. As a founding partner of Duval Union Consulting, Dado helps organizations with their digital organization, helping them to outline the vision and the strategy of the company. And he also likes to make collaborations work in between startups, technology partners, and incubators. And I think in the last 10 years, Dado was able to transform many organizations by injecting this digital DNA into their activities. And for me, I think it's his empathy, which is most probably his very strong characteristic as an entrepreneur. And he is convinced that what makes the difference in this digital era is physical contact, humanity. He believes a lot in the man-machine collaboration. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Dado van Peteghem.
Yes, thanks for having me. Hello everyone, my name is indeed Dado. I'm one of the co-founders of Duval Union Consulting, where we help organizations with transformation, but of course also digital transformation. Next to that, I'm a co-founder at two startups. One is Social Cedar, which is an employee engagement platform, and the other one is Speakers Base, which is a platform where speakers and event organizers can meet. For the people who are still using Twitter, you can follow me via @Dado van Peteghem. For the people who maybe already went on Instagram or maybe even TikTok, you can follow me there as well. I come from the most beautiful city in the world, Ghent, where I also started my career as a goalkeeper of the best football team in the world, of course, which is AA Ghent, where I spent where I spent the best time of my life. But at the year of 14, my parents obliged me to go to boarding school. So from there, it went downhill with my goalkeeping career. But I'm still a very proud Buffalo. I'm one of the co-founders, as said, of Duval Union Consulting. These are my two partners, Joko Droom and Niels van Dam, who recently joined us as our new CEO. And in the past few weeks, we had several conversations about what, according to us, could be the DNA of the new economy. And to us, the DNA of the new economy will be about a different kind of competition. We believe that the competition of the future will be held on the level of ecosystems instead of just on the level of organizations and companies. And so, if you think about it, it already goes back quite a while. It all started with the internet in the early 90s, where we had the first internet modems. You probably all remember the 56K modem, which made that nostalgic sound when you went online. Through Netscape, I don't know if you still remember, you had to pay per minute because it was on the same line as the telephone. I still hear my mom yelling from the kitchen, "Dado, you have to stop the internet right now because we have to make a phone call." Those were the early days. And then in the year 2005 or 4 and 6, you had the uprise of social media, where the machines not only connected to the internet, but the people behind connected as well. Facebook started in 2004, Twitter in 2006, and we all know that social media is still very much on the rise. Companies back then started to digitize their communication and digitize their marketing efforts, and that was the first wave. The second wave happened around 2015, where a lot of companies started to realize that it was not just communication and marketing, but it was also about their business model. And so a lot of companies started to invest in transformation, really reinventing themselves from within the core. And what we think will be the next wave, as said in this gameplay of ecosystems, will be collaboration. We truly believe that this is the way forward. And this happened already a bit. Think about collaborations with startups and scale-ups, but it didn't happen so far too much between the bigger organizations. And that's where we really believe in. And we believe in it to such an extent that Niels and I decided to write a book about ecosystems, or meta systems like we call it. And we want to talk about the power of partnerships for innovation. The book will be launched Q1 next year, and in the next 20 minutes, I want to give you the big lines of the story. So why do we believe in the power of collaboration? That's the very first question. For me, there are three main reasons. And the first reason is, and I think I don't have to convince anyone, the future is coming too fast at us to get at it alone. And I think if we work together and if we join forces, that we can gain speed. And for me, speed will be the ultimate variable of success in the future. We have to become faster. And I'm truly convinced that we can't do it alone. I have this great respect for Rubik's Cubes nerds. I tried to solve a lot of Rubik's Cubes myself when I was younger. I spent days and nights trying to solve it, and actually it never happened, which maybe says a lot about me, but I have a huge respect for it. And you have all these champions, most of them are Asian guys, who really try to perfectionize the whole game. And they can do it in a matter of seconds. And what is interesting is that there are now robots that beat the Asians in their own game. Maybe you've seen this video before, but I think it shows how things are getting faster, cheaper, and better.
Solving in 3, 2, 1.
Oh, yeah.
Did it.
So that's the speed that we are now being engaged with. And I love these robot videos. I think you've seen many. I don't know if you've ever seen the bowling bot. It's also a great example of what bots can do in the future and how they will be able to perfectionize their games. So good. And I also love how he has zero ego after throwing the strike. So that's fantastic. So I think we all agree we are on an exponential curve of technology, which will be hard for us to keep up, and that's the other line. I think more and more exponentially it becomes hard for us to cope with all these changes. I think we are nearing the Wi-Fi moment, and the Wi-Fi moment stands for we're fucked, it's over. That's one way to look at it. We can also look at it from a more positive perspective and say we're fine, it's only the beginning. The second reason is that customers more and more want very specific solutions for new needs that they have. And customers have changed. Again, I don't have to convince you. They want instant gratification, they want higher levels of experience, and they want ultra convenience. This is the new smart customer. And again, I don't think we can solve these needs alone. I think we need to work together towards better solutions. And better solutions will come from the 1 and 1 is 3. And so again, I think that partnerships are really the flip the switch to solve this. Just a few examples. If we combine our forces, I think these are the 5 multiplier effects that might happen. One is we can solve more complex problems, which on the other side makes it harder for competitors to beat us. The second one is that we will get more loyal customers if we work together, which will lead to the fact that we can bind them to us. If we work together, we can think about new value propositions, new services, new products that we can't create alone. The fourth one is experience. I think if we work together, we can create what we always called the seamless customer journey. I've seen it in China, and probably a lot of you as well. There you have seamless customer journeys, because a lot of these companies work together. And then the last one is, why can't we leverage each other's data? If we leverage each other's data, we get shared insights. And we all know we're losing the data game against the big players. So why don't we join forces? The third reason for me is that working together will probably be our biggest line of defense against the big tech players. We won't win alone against Amazon, we won't win alone against Alibaba. If we work together, we might have a chance. It's much harder for them to destroy a network than just to destroy one node of the entire system. So together we are stronger. And I believe there's this race towards AI, and we all try to figure it out. We don't even have the data layer yet. So yes, there is AI, but I think what we can do maybe better is betting on collaborative intelligence. And so yes, AI will be a competitive advantage, but if we can combine it with collaborative intelligence, maybe we also have collaborative advantages. I think that's the nut that we need to crack. Now, I know a lot of companies already talk about ecosystems. The word in itself or the strategy is nothing new. The only thing is that most ecosystems are defined as walled gardens. Walled gardens which are controlled by a few players on the top of the food chain. Think about Apple, for example. It's very easy to get in, very hard to get out. I have my watch, I have my iPhone, I have my Mac, I have my agenda in Apple. It's very hard to shift to another brand. So they lock you in and they own the data. The same goes for Amazon, by the way. They're on the top of the food chain. They control the whole walled garden. So if you think about meta systems, as we like to call it, we need to shift this paradigm to what we call the wild garden. And the wild garden is a place where there's much more biodiversity. In walled gardens, you control everything, but there are only 50 animal species. If you think about a wild garden, there you have a much broader diversity with maybe thousands and thousands of species. And I think this is where we need to move towards. It's a whole other game. Now we think about ecosystems in walled gardens. By the way, all of you and me included, we think about how can we control the game. We don't think about true partnerships. And so how can we do it? I think this is a great proverb from Africa saying everybody hears the big trees falling, but only very few hear the seedlings in the forest growing. And that's, for me, the power of a meta system. If we can bet on this biodiversity, I think this is where the meta systems can thrive. This is where exotic plants come alive, which you will never see in a real walled garden. So what is the problem? The walled garden is focused on antitrust. Nobody trusts each other, so there's one player on top of the food chain. So the thing that we need to figure out in the wild garden is how can we create trust? And I think this will be the hardest one to crack. How can we trust each other? And so to give you an example, a few weeks ago, I was talking to a client, and they said, we do partnerships already for a long time. But maybe we don't do it the right way, because what we say is, we always go for the win-win, we win twice. And that's maybe not the right mindset. So if we really want to get something out of a partnership, it's not just about us. So we have to shift our mindsets from thinking what's in it for me to thinking about what's in it for we. I think that's, again, the trust relationship that we need to build. And thinking about what's in it for we means that we really need to make or break our meta systems this way. So if we don't trust each other, it will never happen. And this is what we do today. If we think about a partnership, we try to think, how can we suck out all the value of the partner at the other side of the table? That's how you go in. It's what's in it for me, not what's in it for we. So what I think we need to do to have more trust is not think about the short term too much, but extend our view, hold our breath a bit longer, and think about the long term. And if you think about the long term, you don't go in with, what can I ask, what can I get, what can I take away? But you go in with a mindset of, what can we give, and then maybe later on, we will get something in return. And I think, again, that's the game that we need to learn to play. Another layer of the meta system is that we should think a bit broader than our own value chain. Most partnerships that happen today are built upstream or downstream the value chain with the traditional players in your own industry. And I think we need to think a bit more 360. There's the future of work, the future of mobility, the future of healthcare, the future of sustainability. There is longevity, migration, geopolitics. There's so much happening around us, which you can look at from a negative perspective, but it also creates a lot of opportunity. And my partner Jo wrote a great book about it, in my personal opinion, called The World is Round. It's only available so far in Dutch, but the English translation will follow soon. So what is the meta system in our first basic definition? I would describe it as a network of unusual networks. So not in your traditional value chain per se, where partners are treated as equals. And so if you put this on a triangle, there are 3 axes. So unusual players, unusual domains. You try to focus on equal partnerships, not what you can suck out of it. And you try to think long-term and hold your breath. These are for us the 3 fundamental layers of a meta system. Now there are already a few companies trying to build this. In my opinion, IKEA is a great example. IKEA, by the way, has a statement on its website saying that we develop long-term strategic partnerships with both large and small players. We work with partners to find innovative solutions, influence governments, and bring substantial changes in children's lives. And so they also list their partnerships, which is interesting because typically what we do is we try to be a closed garden. We don't try to be a glass house. And they try to open up because if other partners see what partners they already have, they might get to ideas. And so IKEA says we are not just longer a furniture company. So they try to think 360, and they now partner with Adidas, they partner with Lego, they partner with Sonos to think about new value propositions. And this for me is really the way forward. Towards the customer, but also towards the back end. They try to reinvent what they call robotic real estate, and also there they try to work with partners instead of trying to invent everything themselves. So this for us is the future. The question is, of course, how can you do it? How can you build a meta system? And as much as we believe that this is an outside-in game, we think you need to start from within. And from within it means that you know what future that you believe in. And Jo has this concept in his book called the OP30. And OP30 stands for Your Optimistic Perspective 2030. And I think that's what we need to figure out. I think it's time to stop talking about a disruption and the impact, all the negative impact digital has on us. It's time to think about positive perspectives. So that's the starting point. And then, of course, you need to scan which partners can help you to develop and to get to your optimistic perspective. And we see 5 ways to get there. The first one is you can follow the strategy. So which partners do you think in the meta system are going towards the same vision as you are? A good example is Telenet and SBS. They both want to crack the code of the content ecosystem, and instead of going at it alone, they joined forces. Another axis is follow the data. This is the iron triangle of Jack Ma. And so the iron triangle has 3 axes: logistics, finance, and e-commerce. And what he is trying to do is build partnership across these 3 axes. And he doesn't own all these companies. Most of them, by the way, are joint ventures, which is a complete mind shift. But he owns the triangle, of course. So in e-commerce and logistics, they have all these partnerships. And data is the fuel of their meta system. The third one is follow the purpose. And that's one axis that I personally truly believe in. A great example is the Loop project. The Loop project is focused on reusable plastics and reusable packaging. And what you see here is that players like Unilever and Procter & Gamble are working together to solve this problem. So as much as they are competing in the front end, as much they are working together in the back end to solve a bigger problem. And I think that's a super interesting thought. Close to purpose is people. You can follow people, and I think following the right DNA is one of the most fundamental ways to find partners. Think about GBC, Torfs, Colruyt Group. All of these companies have a kind of similar DNA and a kind of similar view on the world. And that makes it very natural to work together. So follow the DNA, follow the purpose. And then last but not least, follow technology. A great example here is Picnic. Picnic is an online grocery player in the Netherlands that works together with Zalando to ship back the packages that customers don't want. So you think about technology in the purest form, but it can be vehicles, it can be platforms, and so forth. So the 5 ways to scan for your partners are these. You can scan for partners in the strategy, in the data, in the purpose, the people, and the technology. But again, it starts from your optimistic perspective 2030. And then, of course, what do you do? What do you do once you have formed these partnerships? We think there are 3 types of engagement, and they build upon each other. The first one, which I already mentioned, is collaborative intelligence. I think we really need to share insights much more on events like this, but also in smaller groups and much more frequently. A good example is KBC. We set up the KBC startup community, but of course it's only focused on startups and scale-ups who are now trying to give insights to each other, to gain time and to go faster. And importantly, also to avoid mistakes. But why don't we do this as bigger companies? Why do we focus on mentoring startups and scale-ups instead of just mentoring ourselves in smaller groups? The second layer is collaborative innovation. A good example here is Orange and Proximus. So again, these players are fighting in the front end for the customer attention, but in the back end, they have built their technology in the same mast, and so they try to develop innovation and, of course, efficiencies together. And then the last layer is collaborative business. And a great example here is Spotify. I think most of you probably use Spotify. But what is interesting is that they created a viral loop by creating collaborative business with these players. You might know that they have a partnership with Uber, that if you get into the car, that you can play your own music. If you drive a Tesla, the Spotify app is the default app on the Tesla ecosystem. Samsung did not develop, like Apple, a music ecosystem, so they partnered with Spotify. It's also the default gateway on Shazam. So you listen to a song and you can immediately add it to a playlist in your own Spotify. And then last but not least, Starbucks. You can now also listen to your favorite coffee music thanks to the baristas of Starbucks. But if you really want to do it the good way, I think it's kind of a pyramid where each layer builds upon the previous layer. So the first one is the ground one, the collaborative intelligence. That's the basic starting ground. The second one, the accelerator, is the innovation part. And then what you call the meta system layer is where you eventually end up in collaborative business. Now, of course, we try to eat our own dog food or drink our own champagne, which is maybe more applicable in an event like this. So we try to do it ourselves. A few months ago, we created what we call the Future Club, which is an initiative where we bring together industry leaders across industries to think about potential future scenarios. In Abu Dhabi, we work together with the Abu Dhabi government and 10 social startups who want to help people of determination in Abu Dhabi. On the left-hand side, you see a guy who developed a glove that will help visually impaired people to see through the sensors in the glove. And so in a kind of triangle partnership, we try to ignite the ecosystem around social incubation. And then, of course, as you might know, we are part of the Duval Union ecosystem. And so these are 18 companies, but it's not just a portfolio of 18 companies under each other. We really try to think about new value propositions for our clients. Now, what for me is important, and this is my last part, is that the meta system should not just focus on profit. I truly believe that the North Star of real meta systems should go broader than protecting or generating extra profit. I'm reading a book currently, which I can really recommend, from Mark Benioff. He's the CEO of Salesforce. And he says that he believes that businesses are the greatest platform for change. And I think I fully agree, because it won't be the bio shop on the corner of the street that will change the perspective. It's the bigger corporations like you guys in the room that will have an impact and that have the leverage to actually change things. So I think we need to bring it from a broader perspective. And before, again, there was an old paradigm. You had the for-profit companies against the not-for-profit companies. And one did not what the other did. If you talk to a non-profit, they think making money is dirty. If you talk to profit companies, yeah, they say, we do a bit of charity on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, but it's not part of the core. So these have been two very separate worlds. And I believe that we need to bring them together. I think if we build meta systems that will have true impact, that we should strive to what I call more than for-profit companies. And more than for-profit is a combination of not-for-profit and for-profit, which looks like something that doesn't match us, but it can match. And I ultimately think that it's our biggest USP against the big tech players. You all heard this story of WeWork. What a devastating story. And probably you've seen the utmost strange conversation between Zuckerberg and Cortez yesterday in the hearing in the US. It's a shame. And why is it a shame? In my opinion, it's because these companies have become financial arbitrage machines that don't care anymore about the heart. They just go for the hard dollars. And it's maximizing, and it's VCs against VCs. And I think customers are starting to understand They're starting to walk away from these platforms that focus on purely growth initiatives. And so I think it's not a matter of the hard component against the hard dollars. I think we need to combine both, and again, the more than for-profit companies. And so why can't we combine doing well with doing good? It's not a sequence. I think we can do it in parallel. And so that's what I think where we can make the difference against these big tech players. If we come from a bigger purpose, we might be able to bring our customers back and to attach them to our hearts, not just to the hard growth dollars of these big tech machines. So to summarize my story, why do you need to engage into the meta system? The future comes too fast, so together we gain more speed. 1 and 1 makes 3. Together we can make better solutions for the new demands of the customer. And number 3, again, it's our biggest line of defense against the big tech players. So that's why we truly believe you have to start now. And I always like to end my presentations with an actionable request. What can you do in the next 90 days? And so what can you do? I just thought about it, 2 things. I think you need to think about a partnership manager. I believe that every company who is here needs a partnership manager. Maybe it's your CDO, maybe it's not. It depends on the stage of your organization. And what does this person need to do? Scan 360 for the unusual partnerships in your meta system. Try to connect with the players in the meta system, and especially, of course, try to grow these partnerships. And grow again, let's not just think how we can grow it from a profit perspective, but also from a purpose perspective. And in the last part, if you won't be the partnership manager, my advice for all of you is to get out of the building as much as you can. And it's a good start because you're all here. Second thing is, we need to get out of our bubbles as much as we can too. So please go to unusual events, meet unusual people, not the people in your industry. And then above all, I hope that you're ready to engage and to explore the wild garden. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dado.
Thank you.
So, what's in it for we? Exactly. And we have to trust each other, and we are much stronger if we do it together. We are very happy that you left your own building to come here and to share this story with us. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to serve you the first course. So please enjoy, and we'll be back later.
Thank you.